There's one.
There we go.
And there's two. There's two. Part deux.
I'm trying to fix that stuttering at the beginning. If anybody sees that and it's being weird, I don't know. It just started doing that like with the last couple episodes, and it's probably my laptop, so it's probably my fault.
And I
So
might have to take over and run the boards from here to cease that nonsense. At least until our good compadre gets a new computer with which to hone his engineering trade, if you will. Welcome to episode 225 of This Uncanny Earth. We're 225 episodes, about 4 years deep in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
As always, I'm your host. You see this right here? Host.
it's on the other side.
That's, is it? But see, the way I'm pointing,
Yours is right there. Yours is
it's
right there.
pointing to me.
I can see your hand.
Well, the way I'm pointing, it
And
looks like
mine-
it's there, right there. You know.
Mine's over here.
But see the way it's pointing, both of them on the left.
You're mirrored.
I am mirrored. Or
So
I'm
you're
not.
pointing in the wrong direction.
It's this way.
That's right.
But in reality, though, it looks to me like it's this way. So,
Ba-dum-bam-bam-bam-bam-bam.
so many of you might realize that now we are live on Twitch. I linked my Twitch account earlier to this.
Oh, I see that now. Nice. You updated that. I didn't even notice.
Took all about 5 seconds.
Yep. It's not. It doesn't take very long. It's
Not
pretty
bad
easy.
at all. So, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the Philadelphia experiment, which is not an experiment with pizza and or cheesesteaks. I know a lot of you were like, man, I wish that would have been cheesesteaks,
I'm disappointed now.
you know? But unfortunately, there's not. But, you know, it is that time again. Time that people look back and reflect on their life and they say, man, I wish I wouldn't have heard that. And I have an update for that, and you'll appreciate that momentarily. But hit the theme song and let's do what we do best. Was that the wrong one?
It's the wrong one. Yep, they're right next to each other on the thing. That's my other show. It's time for dad jokes.
You could have really just left the first one. I don't know what the first one was for.
Huh? Huh?
I don't. What?
I don't know what happened there.
This is so unprofessional.
First, I hit the wrong button, and then when I did it, it was just like, and it wanted to sing more after it was done.
This is very unprofessional. It's the most unprofessional talk show I've ever seen in my life. And I saw Morton Downey. I don't know if you remember that dude. He was on it like late at night.
It's because I'm sober. I do worse when I'm sober.
His brain don't think good.
Don't.
What kind of sale was happening at the boat store? A 2-for-1 sale. We did it. Oh. I didn't expect him to come back. I fully expected him to not come back.
I wasn't even going to stick around for that joke. I was just like, nope. I know what's coming. And I was
It's
trying
fine. Because our good friend Zach, he has been telling me dad jokes as I leave the gym. And they are, he told me this one. He said, how'd it go? Oh, there he is. Speak of the devil and he will appear. Zach, tell us that joke about the wizard falling down the stairs. It's bad. Like, he told it to me today. And it kind of.
I don't think we need guest jokers. I don't think so. I think that's employee abuse. That's what that
But
is.
it was. Listen, I had to rethink a lot of things in my life. I rethought for a brief moment the way I treat you. Wasn't long. What do you call a wizard that fell down the stairs? Hit us with it. Tumbledore.
It's kind of a niche joke, at least. I mean, you have to be at least knowing the source material, I guess.
I mean, do you though?
I've only ever seen the one movie, and I play that one game that we're not supposed to talk about because everybody
Hey,
hates
I
everything.
played that game
about it.
too, oddly enough. Huh. Imagine that. Anyway, so that was he told me that joke today, and now I have ringooed it to you. So now that I won't die in 7 days. So that's fantastic. Because that's how these things work, obviously. It's so episode 225, the Philadelphia Experiment. What is the Philadelphia Experiment? Now, there's a movie that I have never seen regarding two gentlemen that go into the future because it's the 80s or the 90s. I think it was like 80s when the movie came out, and I might watch it after this episode.
Like 84 or 83.
Yeah, then there was another one. There was a part 2
in 2014.
Oh,
They
here we
did make
go.
another one.
Zach wants to bless us with another one. Now, do we A, let him do this, or do we B, just block him and get it over with?
Well, my opinion isn't going to count here. I know that. So I'm just going to just sip this coffee and just wait for it to be over.
Go ahead, Zach. You might as well do it before we get into the show. Might as well just go ahead and get this over with. What if he just never responded and he just left?
Nope, it's in there.
No, I know, but like, what if he did that and then we just
sit here and that'd be the show?
I know the answer. So if he leaves, I know the answer.
I already see it. It's already here.
No, it's not. I don't see it.
It's a variation on a theme.
No, the joke is there, but the punchline is not.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking at it right here.
I don't see it. I do not see it. How do I not see that? I see. If you think that was bad, what do you call the wizard that's bad at football?
Yeah, and there's his answer.
It should be Fumbledore right after that, right?
Yeah, and then he said it twice to make sure that you saw it.
That's weird. I don't see it.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Where's that coming from? Is that coming from Twitch?
Yes. Yep.
I wonder
it's
why
got the little symbol on it.
I wonder why that's doing that. Wait. Anyway, I don't know why they did that, Zach, but thank you for the comment. So, codenamed Project Rainbow was carried out under the auspices or the guidance of Albert Einstein, and it was the testing of alien technology in 1943. But on October 28th of 1943, Carl M. Allen was said to have witnessed the USS Eldridge disappear with bizarre results to follow. Little tagline there. But in 1956, Carl began writing. Oh, that should be 1946.
1946.
Dates are important. Somebody got their dates wrong. I don't know who it was. It wasn't me, but somebody. So in 1946, Carl begins to write one Morris K. Jessup. Jessup authored a book titled The Case for the UFO in 1945. Carl tried convincing Jessup to stop his research. Oh, no, you know what? This is right. I'm sorry. I have messed up. Let me retract. Let's start the show over again.
Rewind.
In 1956, I was right on my dates. Carl began writing letters to Morris K. Jessup. Now, Jessup was an author who titled a book, The Case for the UFO in 1955. Carl tries to tell Jessup to stop his research he was conducting on Albert Einstein's incomplete unified field theory. We'll get into that a little bit later about what that is and what that entails. It was then that Jessup was informed by Allen about the USS Eldridge. Allen said that he was one of the sailors on board of another vessel, the USS Andrew Furuseth, who witnessed the USS Eldridge appear and then suddenly disappear. Not USS Andrew, SS Andrew Furuseth. If I was a Navy man, I would know the difference. I'm not a Navy man. My neighbor, God rest his soul, he was a Navy man, so he could have been like, the SS is this and the USS means this. So I do not know, but we can find out for you. But around this time, the U.S. Office of Naval Research receives an anonymous package. The package itself was titled Happy Easter. And inside of this package was a book heavily annotated. Obviously, the book was The Case for the UFO, Unidentified Flying Objects. This version, however, appeared to have 3 different annotations from 3 different people: Mr. A, Mr. B, and one Jemmy, Jemi. The notes inside the book relate to the UFO's extraterrestrial life on Earth and suggest Jessup's research on unified field theory was really close to alien technology. There were also several allusions to the Philadelphia experiment. Now, I have found a copy of said book. It is available online. You can retrieve it in the way you so choose to retrieve it. Some of us retrieve it from places and other places. So, just so you know, I don't think the government's going to come getting you, though, because it's not top secret.
No, they actually did a lot of the reproductions themselves at first.
Yeah, but we'll get into that too. Uh-oh, somebody did some research. Watch out, ladies and gentlemen. He's off the juice, but he's on the loose.
Oh, goodness.
So the notes in the book actually relate to UFOs, extraterrestrial life on Earth, and they suggest that Jessup's research on unified field theory was close to alien technology. And I feel like I just said this, but I'll say it again. So, and there were also, like I said, several allusions to the Philadelphia experiment. 2 agents in the ONR, Captain Sidney Sherby and George Hoover, helped grow this myth or this hoax or this fact. There's a lot to this, by privately printing multiple copies of this annotated book. Hoover explains that his duties as a special projects officer requires him to investigate many publications, and he said he found nothing of substance to the alleged invincibility experiment.
That's a little different.
Invisibility. I mess those up sometimes. Hoover would go on to discuss his book with one Austin M. N. Stanton, who is the president of Vero Manufacturing Corporation of Garland, Texas. During meetings about Vero's contract work for, you guessed it, the ONR. Now, I just want to take a minute to go on a side note here. I looked up Vero, the corporation, looked it up online, did a little googly earlier. Vero was actually founded in 1946, and the company's line of business included manufacturing of industrial and commercial, you guessed it, electric apparatus and equipment. Now, Stanton becomes fascinated with this book, okay? And he takes a personal interest in the matter, right? Here's this head guy taking this interest in what, the Navy says, no. And he goes on to produce a mimeograph copy of Jessup's book, and then he produces multiple quantities with Allen's letters and annotations. And like I said before, this would be known as the Vero copy, unlike the original copy that didn't have the annotations and or the letters. Now, on a side note, the ONR was basically a government branch, but they did not come about until the late 40s. Just so we have some context, they weren't always around. So they were relatively new players on the field by the time this information came to light. In 1957, the ONR invited Jessup to view the annotated versions of his book, and he goes on to verify that it was in fact Allen's handwriting in those letters. It has since been confirmed that it was in fact Allen who sent the package to the ONR, and in 1969, he admitted to writing all of the annotations. His whole reason was to scare Jessup away and deter him from continuing his investigation into the unified field theory. Allen viewed this as a very dangerous field of study. And to go on record, the U.S. Navy has went on to say that it never happened and it was nothing more than a hoax. And it seems our good Spider's laptop has probably went up. Yep, the laptop crashed, didn't it?
Yep. Yeah, sure did. Hope you can hear me. This is going to be a little irritating, but we'll make it work.
We always do. Now he's on this side.
Yep.
Now I can point at him. So far we have a ground level work here for what we're going to build up to be an amazing story. What do you think so far about this, Spider? What are your thoughts so far?
Well, it's interesting, and I've known about this for a while because when I was in school, I believe it was either middle school or high school. I don't remember. For people who don't know, where I went to school at, we called it middle school, but that's basically junior high. And
yeah, middle school, junior high, like 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah. We watched like this documentary thing about the Philadelphia experiment, and it had this footage that was supposedly, it wasn't real footage. I think it was like dramatized footage of stuff, but it was all done in black and white and old time stuff, and the kind of stuff you see on like Ancient Aliens and stuff when they're recounting historical things and they don't actually have footage of it. And it was really interesting, and I was really into it. And for some reason, when I was looking around today, I looked up probably a lot of the same research that you did. And I remember there being more to it than what I found. Like now it just reads as like, oh, it's a hoax. It's this and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember reading about it before, and there actually being a lot more like secondary sources that seemed legit about the whole thing. So it kind of puts it into a weird either Mandela effect kind of thing or something for me, because it's like I couldn't find anything really great about it other than branching off from a wiki article. And but it's fascinating because a lot of the things that they talk about that it did supposedly had nothing to do with what they were really doing according to them with the electromagnets and things like that. So it's kind of a fascinating story that you can't really say anything for or against. There's no evidence that it did happen necessarily now, and there's no evidence that it didn't anymore.
And that's interesting to note, because I think a lot of times this information gets destroyed, and we live in an age where governments, corporations, businesses control our internet. They control our means of information. They control our means of getting factual media. Mm-hmm. So who's to say that, they didn't scrub the internet? A lot of things have been getting scrubbed. I have to agree with you. I remember times when I found information about different things you can't find on the internet.
Yeah.
And they say you can find anything on Google, but I don't necessarily believe that. So let's get into the science of this whole concept of unified field theory. In particle physics, an attempt to describe all fundamental forces and the relationships between elementary particles in terms of a single theoretical framework is basically what defines unified field theory. Now, to break it down a little bit more, because I had to take the 6-year-old route and like get it simplified for me a few times. Mm-hmm. The fundamental forces are 4 basic forces: gravitational, electromagnetic, strong, and weak. These govern how objects or particles interact and how certain particles decay. All known forces of nature can be traced back to these fundamental forces. Now, in one theory that regards the USS Eldridge and the way all of this happened was electromagnetism and gravity were both used by a large generator, an electrical generator that was installed on the vessel itself. Now, as many of you know, I'm a big Nikola Tesla fan, and a lot of times he would sit under electricity. There's pictures of him sitting under it, and it was just a very interesting thing. And so what they did here was they used electricity to bend light around objects, which is known as refraction. And refraction is the redirection of a wave as it passes from one medium to another. The redirection can be caused by the wave's change in speed or by a change in the medium. So, for instance, if any of you have ever had a mirror, okay, and if you reflect it, or even like a watch or anything that can reflect light, and sometimes the sun will hit it just right, and you'll look up and there'll be a little light sphere on your ceiling. And as you move your wrist, you see the light move back and forth. Basically, what that's doing is it's refracting off of the glass on your watch or the glass in your mirror, and it's going to another point in your home. So this same basic concept. It took the light that was hitting it to show that the vessel was there and refracting it around the vessel to make it look like it was in fact invisible, that it wasn't there at all. Now, the second thing that happened, supposedly, and another theory to add to this, is that researchers were experimenting with remember, electromagnetic and gravitational measurements are going to be the key focus for this experiment. But they did it of the seafloor to detect anomalies. In this way, it was to mirror Einstein's attempt to understand gravity. Remember, Einstein is a big figure during this time. We have the A-bomb, and there was a lot of input by him, and we have all of his theories and thoughts. And this is there, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he was still alive, I believe. Oh, let's see. When did Mr. Einstein die? Let's see here. April 18th, 1955. So at the time of the vessel disappearing, he would have still been alive. However, at the time of the incident between Carl and Mr. Jessup, he was dead. He'd been dead he'd been dead about a year. So we have that at play. And the interesting thing about this is not only does this involve Einstein, this also involves Nazi technology, which is also said to be used with this theory to find anti-gravity, according to SS Obergruppenführer Hans Kammler. So remember, we have to understand that due to Operation Paperclip, Nazis were plucked and put here as scientists. Werner von Braun was a high-level Nazi, the creator of the V-2 rocket. So you have America pulling Nazis like weeds out of a garden and then replanting them here. So I know what they should have done with them, but it's not a very appropriate thing to say on an episode of This Uncanny Earth. So we will just let that go and won't get into that too much. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on unified field theory? What are your thoughts on utilizing electromagnetic and gravitational forces in conjunction with technology like Nazi technology?
Well, the thing about the unified field is that's something that's actually still being debated today. It's a pretty big deal. It has been a big deal for a long time because it's supposedly it's been titled the theory of everything, because the people figure if you can crack the code of it, you can find out how every single bit of the universe is connected to each other, how everything works. You can figure out how physics interacts with quantum mechanics, how all that, like, it'll solve everything if you can build this framework. The problem is, of course, that we come up with new stuff every few years that doesn't fit in the prevailing theory, so you have to come up with something else and something else, something else. And like they'll say that, oh, this proves Einstein's theory of relativity. And then like a couple years later, they'll say, oh, well, this disproves his theory of relativity. Let's scrap that. But then a few years later, they're like, oh, nope, it actually didn't. We found some new information. And so they go back and forth and back and forth. But it's pretty fascinating, and it's pretty important as far as people trying to make sense of the universe on a scientific scale. And even the people who aren't directly involved in that part of the science, like around the time when he was trying to come up with that theory, there were a lot of people working on tangents of it. Quantum mechanics and quantum physics has been around for a lot longer than they actually gave it a name for, and that's one of the things that the Nazi scientists were really into, because they were trying to figure out how to reconcile some of this stuff to do anti-gravity with like the bell and all that other kind of stuff. And it's what led to them developing the first fighter jets the first jet engines and the first jet powered rockets and things that were really kind of devastating. The problem is all of that was expensive, ran out of all of their money, and that's one of the reasons why they fell apart, because they couldn't keep up anymore. They put all their money into this, and then they started losing money, and then so we steamrolled them. But it's super interesting, and it's really relevant to what's going on today. And it's because we don't understand how that all works is why things like the Philadelphia experiment, assuming that it happened, could go sideways and really make a mess out of things.
100%. And obviously, since it's new technology and it's the first of an experiment, things are going to go wrong. Things are going to happen.
Mm.
And let's get into that first testing, shall we? So the USS Eldridge went through testing in the summer of 43. The equipment was fitted onto the destroyer Escort at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. According to persons who can't be named, obviously in cases like this, there's always people who can't be named, top men, right? The experiment was a success to an extent. The USS Eldridge becomes nearly invisible. Those in attendance reported seeing a strange green fog, it was greenish blue, fogged hue wrapped around where the vessel was previously stationed. When the ship finally reappears, a horrific scene unfolds in front of witnesses. Some sailors were found fused to different metal structures of the ship. One sailor who was on one deck teleported to the deck below with his hand fused into the metal itself. Others went completely mad, just went crazy, while others had bad nausea. So thankfully, if you're the person that had the bad nausea, at least you didn't get your hand fused to the
Got
ball.
off kind of easy.
Yeah. And I think what we're seeing is dimensional shifts. And I think when that happens, because I have seen movies where, in TV shows where they discuss what would happen if you tried to teleport somebody to another location and the teleportation went wrong. Sometimes they could be stuck in a limbo state where they can't go here, they can't go there. Sometimes their matter completely rearranges. Other times they go completely nuts. Still other times they end up fused into a wall. But the key point is your molecular restructuring something here. And the thing is, while they were just trying to refract light around the vessel, this did something completely different. And I have to wonder if the well, no, that wouldn't make sense. The Vero Corporation was founded in 46, so they wouldn't have had the contracts to put on the Eldridge in 43. But I wonder if somehow their contracts involved research from the Eldridge testing in 43. Now, a second testing or another variation occurs, like we said, on October 28th, 1943, when we talked about at the beginning of the show. The Eldridge goes through another testing of this, but this time the testing goes even worse than the very first time that the testing happened. This time the ship completely disappears. It's gone. But then, strangely enough, it reappears in Norfolk, Virginia, which is 200 miles away. The Eldridge sat for some time in view of the men aboard the ship, the SS Andrew Furuseth, where Mr. Allen was said to reside. But then it disappears. The Eldridge disappears again and reappears back in Philadelphia. Now you're thinking, cool, they were able to crack the teleportation code. However, the crew suffered some serious side effects this time. Some of the crew were said to be physically fused to the bulkheads of the ship, not in so much as a hand, but whole bodies halfway into the metal. Other guys were rematerialized inside out. Others completely vanished, and still others suffered complete mental breakdowns. Now, like I said, with the knowledge of teleportation and what can go wrong, because with teleportation, you're taking molecules and you're putting them in another place, and you're doing it through a form of fast travel. We've all watched Star Trek. I haven't watched a lot of it, but a lot of people have. And Beam Me Up, Scotty, where they're taking the molecular structures of Captain Kirk and his crew and bringing them all aboard the USS Enterprise. I know what you're all saying. I thought you didn't watch a lot of Star Trek, nerd. Well, I know little bits and pieces. Okay, there you go. But that's essentially what happened. Was the molecular structure of Captain Kirk and the rest of his crew were broken down and brought back into the ship and reformed. That's what this seems like to me. The ship's crew may also have been brainwashed to keep the fateful secret from the public. Now, I want to go on record and say this because I feel like this is something that needs to be said. I believe this could have been an actual case. I believe the government 100% did the biggest cover-up job they could possibly do. Reason being, Operation Paperclip, Operation Northwoods, both of those two things. If you don't know what those are, please look into them. But it proves that the government is nothing short of a manipulative X is the best way I would put it. A manipulative X who does not stop being manipulative. And, say what you will, don't like the show, whatever, what have you. But I do not trust the government in any form or fashion. And I believe this could very well have been a case. I mean, we have, like I said, Operation Paperclip. We have the raiding of Tesla's lab by the U.S. government, who came in and took Tesla's notes, Tesla's things, and only returned some of them back to the man's home in Serbia while they kept others. Tesla himself said he created a death ray. So if men like Tesla can create these things, who's to say that they didn't somehow crack Einstein's unified field theory and were able to sort of bastardize it, pardon the language, bastardize it into something that just didn't work for them? That maybe is one of those things where they didn't have enough information. They thought electricity was the way to go, right? And so they didn't account for a lot of things, because what are you going to account for? You can run as many on paper testings as you want, and outcome A, B, and C might occur, but then you might get outcome T, U, V that you never accounted for. And I think in this case, when we're talking about the fusing of bodies, we're talking about rematerialization, you think of one of two things. Either A, it went horribly wrong, right? Or it went horribly right. And their whole intention was to see what kind of a weapon this would produce. Because at the time, we have to think at the time, okay, Germany's naval force wasn't anything to scoff at. It was pretty powerful. And they were sinking U.S. ships left and right. Who's to say that this wasn't some form of a weapon of mass destruction rather than just trying to cover up a ship? Now, that's all hearsay and conjecture, because I don't know. That's just a theory that I personally have, because, I mean, we dropped a nuclear bomb on Japan. Who's to say we didn't do the same thing?
And there's some precedent as far as how that played out too, because we did all these tests, the United States, when I say we did all these tests in the desert in different places and on these little islands,
Bikini
about
Atoll.
how big these things were going to be. But when the bombs were actually dropped in Japan, the results were more than what was expected. Like they knew there was going to be devastation because they'd seen the effects that this stuff has, but the explosions were so great and the damage was so bad and the radiation was so much worse than they had even expected that it was almost like, well, I hope these guys surrender, because if we drop any more, we're really going to be in trouble, because I don't think we want to. But we had to bluff our way through the whole thing because we'd already done it. But after that is when everybody was like, okay, now that we've done that, let's not do that anymore, because clearly it was a bad idea.
Right.
And so there's precedent for at least our government and probably other world governments testing things out, saying, oh yeah, that's pretty good, let's use that. And then the end result of after the tests are over, finding out, oh, Well, that didn't go exactly like the test. That was much worse. So, who knows what kind of stuff that our government was into and is still into, honestly. I mean, there's all kinds of things you could say these days that are experiments that we're not going to mention because then we'd get some angry letters. But or
100%.
angry emails or angry whatever. I don't know.
Angry. I'd have to check my telegraph machine to have when the Graham Bell dropped off.
So yeah, it's there is precedent for it, and it's something that I'm sure still happens with multiple governments to this day.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I don't think that we're the only government that does these things. I just think that we are the looked at as the main aggressor of the world. A lot of people like to say we police the world, but who's to say we don't give this technology to other people? Who's to say we don't give this technology to superpowers like Russia? Oh no,
Mhm.
there you go. I said that. I said it. I wasn't
That
joking.
reminds me of something recently too that I don't know. It's only kind of related. It's related to this little mini discussion that we're having here that I find interesting because you and I were kind of like, oh, the government would never lie to people. Let's think about that.
Hmm.
Um, as a
Hmm.
tangent that still kind of plays into this, recently I read an article about the does it anybody remember the stuff that was going on in Cuba with supposed sonic weapons and
Remember
the
this? We talked
Havana
about this. We talked about this.
syndrome? They
We
released
talked
a
about this.
report. Yep, they released a report on it recently. And they said, oh, there's no evidence that it's any kind of weapon. There's no evidence that another government is involved. It's probably a combination of pre-existing conditions and a bunch of other things. And I'm like, this is a few hundred people, and they all have the same pre-existing condition.
Yes.
You read like the release about the article, and you're kind of like, I don't think something's quite being told here.
Right.
And it's a perfect example of exactly what we're talking about. Whether it's actually a real weapon or not, who's to say? Maybe it isn't. But the way that it's being explained now is definitely a smoothed over kind of thing. Like it
100%.
almost is like if it's not a weapon, it's almost like they don't know what it is, and they're just kind of be like, "Well, we think it's this, so let's all just hope it goes away."
And how much or how many times that happened? How many times
Hmm.
that happened in the
Hmm.
the Middle East with whatever is over there? I always find it interesting that we spend most of our careers, and I'm talking about the U.S. government, in the military and the military specifically. Why do we spend so much time in the Middle East? A lot of people say, well, it's for oil. We could easily run into Venezuela and take their oil. It's not like Venezuela can put up much of a fight. They got overthrown. They're going through a rough government at present. It would be nothing just to go down there and just take it. I'm sure the world would have a problem with it, but I mean, we're already in the Middle East, but I don't believe for 1 minute that it's oil related. And
And
I
we have
believe,
so many of our own natural reserves here too. That's the other
yeah, we
thing.
don't want
Well,
that. We don't want that.
assuming that
We
people
want to
don't
hoard
keep
that.
releasing it for no particular reason,
We want to hoard
because
that.
that's been happening a lot recently too.
I think that's why, because we hoard it. We don't want ours. We want somebody else's. And if we get somebody
Hmm.
else's, then we'd rather have somebody else's than use up ours. It's a greedy child syndrome.
Hmm.
Go eat your friend's cookies so you don't have to waste the cookies you have at home, and you could eat those cookies at home for later. Greedy child syndrome. However, in this case, to get back on topic, um, some people say it's a hoax. The reasoning behind it is the ONR has never conducted the ONR has never conducted any investigations on invisibility, either in 1943 or at any time. In view of present scientific knowledge, ONR scientists do not believe that such an experiment could be possible except in the realm of science fiction. Had to look the quotes up because it's a quote.
You
That
were
to
about to fly
me,
away there for a second.
I was getting a lot of
A
pressure
lot of
going
air
there.
there.
But that screams to me, we knew exactly what was going on. Here's a generic line. That just says we've never conducted any investigations on invisibility. However, they did. They conducted them. Um, Degaussing, which is a form of, in a roundabout way, to to be invisible to certain things, but not invisible in terms of like straight disappearing, but invisible to other things. So it's little things like that. Like I think they said that degaussing was like invisible to
Electronic signals like
yeah,
mines and
yep, exactly.
torpedoes and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. Still a form of visibility. So, and you didn't specify here. They didn't specify. You think they would have specified like, yeah, we didn't do the invisibility thing in the sense of making the ship disappear. We did the degaussing, which was more of a trying to disappear from landmine or not landmines, but from depth charges, torpedoes, things like that. Wasn't mentioned here. Just to catch all kind of, I don't know what you're talking about. Another reason that people consider this to be a hoax is that in the date of the experiment, it was listed as October 28th, 1943. But the USS Eldridge itself was supposedly in the Bahamas on a shakedown tour. So if you're in the Bahamas, see, and that's the thing. Nobody has pictures of it being down there from my recollection. Now, what happened to the USS Eldridge? It was in fact scrapped, I think. Let me pull this up here because I looked this up earlier, and I believe it was scrapped. Let's see what comes up here. So it was decommissioned on June 1946, on the 17th of June, and it was actually sold to Greece in the, here we'll do this here so you guys can have a quick a peek at this ship here. Let's go ahead and go down to present, go down to share the screen here. Let's see. There we go. Share. That's the USS Eldridge. For those of you that need to see it, that is a weird flag thing. I don't know what that was. I just clicked the next thing. Here is the ship here. The picture. Name Eldridge, ordered in 1942. The builder was the Federal Shipping and Dry Dock Company in Newark, New Jersey. It was laid down on the 22nd of February, 1943, launched on the 25th of July, 1943, commissioned 27th of August, 1943, decommissioned, like I said, June 17th of 46, stricken, which basically means taken apart and all that jazz, on the 26th of March, 1951, and then sold to Greece on the 15th of January, 1951. So before it was sold, or after it was sold, or before it was sold, I don't know. Before it was sold, it was stricken. And or no, hold on. It was sold to Greece and then stricken for parts because I believe it was scrapped. Let's see. Yeah, on January 15th, on January 15th, 1951, she was transferred under the Mutual Defense Assistance Act to Greece, where she served as Leon D-54. Leon was decommissioned on the 5th of November, 1992. And on the 11th of November of 1999 was sold as scrap to the Piraeus-based firm V&J Scrap Metal Trading Ltd. Let's see something here because I am kind of curious.
Following that rabbit hole.
Yeah, we sure are. Welcome to an episode of This Uncanny Earth. We're gonna find out some company info on this V&J Scrap Metal Trading Limited. Let's see what we got here. V&J Scrap Metal Trading Limited. It is in Greece, I think, or Cyprus. Registered in Cyprus. And let's see. So yeah, not really much. It's a private company. It's a limited company. The registration date is 96/07/03/96, but it has been dissolved. So it doesn't even exist. Some key people. Oh my goodness, I cannot read any of these names. There we go. If you see these names, if anybody out there can read it, definitely Greek. No documents. Shareholders. There was no shareholders. It's very, very private. But here's your address. This word. 23 Libra Tower, floor 4, 3035, Have no idea what that says. And there's a previous address, but you can order a report. So it might have had a previous address. Very interesting. You could get $50. Let's see, open. Let's see what this one says. Basically the same thing. But yeah, there you go. So interesting enough, its incorporation date was 96, but the dissolution date was 2006. So it only really lasted roughly 10 years, May, June, July, August, September, 10 years and 6 months is how long that company lasted. Interestingly enough, let's go back here. So it sold to these guys in 99. Sold to these guys in 99, 3 years after the company is created. Now, the company's dissolved. You have to wonder what happened to the boat itself. If it's sold as scrap, that doesn't necessarily mean that the boat itself was scrapped. It just more or less means that it's still floating around, or pieces of it are floating around, or one of the many mysteries of this thing, which is, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a fascinating rabbit hole to go down. One more thing to note in the idea of this being a hoax is that Carl Allen was also known as a master leg puller
by his family,
by his own family members. But once again, was that the Navy coming into that man's family's home and saying, listen, you cannot tell anything what's going on. You better say something. I read reports where some people said that he was mentally unstable, that he was sort of a prankster. Like to tell stories. Like to tell tall tales, if you will. I don't know. It's a tough one. Now, for a long time, this was put to bed as a hoax. People said, all right, we're going to give up on it. The Montauk Project ended up sparking some new interest in the Philadelphia experiment. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, and we're going to get into this one probably maybe a couple shows, down the line. It's a conspiracy theory that alleges that there were a series of United States government projects at Camp Hero and Montauk Air Force Station in Montauk, New York, for the purpose of developing psychological warfare techniques and exotic research, get this, including time travel. Time travel. Basically taking molecular structures and moving them through the spaceways of time. Very interesting. This whole foray into the Philadelphia experiment has been a fascinating journey. Like, I've really enjoyed just learning about it as a whole, because I have heard about it. I know it's been talked about in circles, and I've heard it on different web pages. Just, I think me and you might have talked about it for, a couple times.
Yeah, once or twice.
Chats. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get more into it. And one of our viewers suggested it, said, hey, you should talk about the Philadelphia experiment. I was really into it, and this, that, and the third. And I said, hey, why not? Let's run with that, because I feel like that is an appropriate discussion to have. And I think we're going to get more into some sciencey stuff at some point, some time travel, because we've done a lot of, you guys are noticing, it's not like we're running out of content, but I feel like we become more knowledgeable in the older content that we have had on our show. And we are moving forward with newer content, but we're bringing back some of the old stuff to bring a refreshing take on that classic content you guys know and love. So we got about 10 minutes up. We're going to wrap it up here soon. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is a hoax? Do you think it could be legit? What do you think?
I think it's fascinating, first and foremost, because I think there were a lot of really interesting and strange things going on around the middle to end of World War II, because everybody was trying to come up with the next big technology that was going to win the war.
Yep.
Like I mentioned earlier, Germany had invented the jet engine. So they had their rockets and they had all these other kind of things. They were working on anti-gravity. They were doing all these different genetic experiments and whatnot. The Japanese were experimenting with toxins and gases and things like that. We had the atomic energy, all that other kind of stuff. So everybody was involved in a lot of hefty things. Even radar systems were becoming something that was really new technology at the time, because England was working on these big radar receivers to warn them that when Germany was going to be coming. And so they were kind of pioneering that. So we had all these different things, code breaking and the Enigma machines and all this stuff. It doesn't really seem out of the ordinary that something was being messed around with that probably shouldn't have. And a lot of that, you got to think of the time frame between then and now. There's probably a lot of stuff that has been either deliberately lost or just bad bookkeeping shuffled it around, and we'll never know. Because they didn't have computer science was still really super new. Their computers were basically just big abacuses, and they just spat out stuff on a like a little code sheet, like a punch card. They had punch card stuff, and most of that was for code reading. And so we didn't have the records keeping that we do now. We didn't have the records retention that we do have now. We didn't have the internet as we know it, so we couldn't, preserve any of this online. So there's probably a lot of that stuff, again, that may have been deliberately lost and was able to be lost because there's no way for anybody to retrieve it. So I think there's some truth to it, honestly. I mean, whether it's actually something that happened the way that it's said to have happened, who knows? But I think there is some truth to it somewhere. And I think it's that truth that's still kind of being worked on behind the scenes to this day.
Yeah, and I don't think we'll ever get a real answer unless, the world ends and we somehow get a hold of mysterious documents, or we get sent mysterious documents, which you can send us mysterious documents, thisuncanny@gmail.com.
All whistleblowers, send us what you have.
Send us what you have ASAP. Nothing weird. Disclaimer, if you said anything weird, we will notify law enforcement. So do not send us anything weird. And you guys know what I mean by weird, so don't do that. Other than that, if you have encounters, if you've seen ghosts, if you have seen frogmen down in Loveland, Ohio, by all means, send us. And we will mention you on the show, and we will read your letter. And if you wish to remain anonymous, by all means, we will keep you anonymous. We keep people's anonymity. Anonymity? That's one of those words. It's always
anonymity.
Anonymity.
There we go.
There we go. You have just shaky cammed the heck out of this episode. I'll tell you that much.
I know, because I keep my hands are itchy and things, and I
need a phone
move, I
stick.
twitch. I had one, but I had taken it off the stand because I wasn't using it, so the adapter is upstairs now.
You're making me sick. More so than you normally make me sick.
So we should probably prop some things too, huh?
Oh, next week we have a guest. I will be bringing forth that guest in the group, This Uncanny Earth Official. Join it on Facebook. Also, head over to our YouTube channel, http:// I don't know, www.youtube.com/ is it / at This Uncanny Earth to catch up on all of our episodes, past, present, and if you're in the future, I guess the future. You can also check out our shorts. You can also, not our shorts. I'm wearing shorts, but not those shorts. But like the short clips that I have put up there. Also, you can check out our gaming channels, www.twitch.tv / Uncanny Alchemist. That was a name change. It's a dope and I like it. Also, www.twitch.tv / DMGRGN. That's Dungeon Master Gregory North. I don't know. That's what I mean. It's a thing, but that's what I've always thought. It's easy for me. It's easier for me to remember it that way if I say it that way. So it's, it's that. Also, check out the Uncanny Spirits Club and check out the Saturday Spiritualist. What do you have coming up next for those two shows? Oh, and also let's talk about this, but not the music with
Right.
people that want you to give to their GoFundMe's and then complain when the GoFunding isn't there. Sorry.
Well, tomorrow is going to be a more lighthearted episode of Saturday Spiritualist because I'm going to be getting into something that is kind of an anti-spirituality, but some people are really into it. We're going to be talking about the flying spaghetti monster. So if anybody wants to get touched by his noodly appendage, that's the show for you.
Please tell me you're not going to be talking about Richard Dawkins.
No, I don't think so specifically. I might mention him just briefly, but not as like, he's not a celebrity for me, so I'm not going to be, he's got some smart things, but other than that, it's just like if I start talking about left-hand path stuff, I'm not going to talk like exhaustively about Anton LaVey all day and all
or
night.
Aleister Crowley.
But I'll mention him.
No, I get it.
Yeah, I'll mention him. But that's on deck for tomorrow. That'll be at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, like most of our YouTube content. Sunday is clear, and Monday for Let's Talk About This, the podcast, I will be talking about the Muppets. That's right, the Muppets, because who doesn't like a Muppet? I don't know.
My favorite was always Fozzie.
Sweetums, because he's just huge, and he's not actually a puppet. He's just a big whatever he is.
And I also like the two grumpy old men.
Every time. So that's what's on deck for the weekend and into Monday.
Coming up next? What spirit you reviewing next?
That's a good question. If I trusted my laptop, I would look it up.
Is it the Grouse?
Maybe. I have one more episode of the Spirits Club that's recorded before I do the St. Patrick's Day episode, which will be the week after that, which will be live.
2 weeks from today.
Right. And I will be doing Irish car bombs live on the air, and we'll just be having a good old time.
You should come through. You should come through the house.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. Because I don't know if anybody else is going to be here in the house at the time. I think I have to stay home because nobody else is going to be here. But we'll see how it goes. We'll figure that out. But that's going to be live one way or the other.
There it is. There it is. What are you playing this week?
That's a good question. I've had some disasters the last couple times. I've had some disasters. So I might play a silly game. I might play My Time in Portia, which is like a little kind of Animal Crossing style thing, I think. I don't know. Somebody else in my house was playing it, and I haven't played it yet, and I don't really want to because I'm tired of little.
What did you play on Tuesday for your whatever?
I played Corgan, which is you play some like a dwarf and a somebody with a bow and somebody like who's a mage, and you switch between a will, and it's a freeware game on Xbox, which caught me by surprise. But that's because there's $20 DLC to play past the prologue. So we're not doing that.
Right in the you know what, but I won't say what.
Right. And then what else did I play after that? The other game I played after that was The Raven. I played The Raven.
Oh, I heard that's pretty good actually.
That was funny. That was like a riff-a-thon, I'll tell you. That was a good time. So anybody can go back and see that.
Speaking of riff-a-thon, do you have the Riff Tracks game?
Yes, and if we can get enough people on board and actually live at the same time, we should probably do like a 100%. 4 or 5 player, like, because I'd like that. I've played it before, and it can be hilarious as long as you have a phone or like a tablet or a cell phone. Then you don't have to actually have the game yourself. You can watch, like, we could be hosting the game and have it on our screen here where people could see it. And then all they have to do is be on their phone to pick their choices and do some riffing because it's pretty funny.
Well, I'll look into it because I was thinking about getting it too at some point. I'm also looking into getting it. I've been streaming the game that can't be named, and I have been having a blast. I don't rock the spider armor. That's what you rock, but I rock the dragon skin because the dragon skin.
That's what I had for quite a while. I like the long coats.
The long coats are the best coats.
Yep, I like the
I
long
don't. I don't
coats.
wear the wizard robes. It looks absurd.
Nah, I look as little like a student as possible. I want to
Same.
look like some like thug who's from like outside contracting.
Have you seen the cutscenes like that show you off doing like stuff with the
Yeah.
other students? And you don't look anything like.
And you don't match anybody. Like you got like a different hat or you got like a mask
100%.
on or something like that.
I think what I like the most about this game, and I hope they incorporate this into other games, is the fact that you don't have to wear what you equip. You can change what you equip to another outfit that you like.
Yep.
And I thought that was absolutely genius.
Everything you collect adds the
Yes.
image of that to your
Yes.
image collection.
Yes.
So even if you sell it, get rid of it, whatever, you'll still
Yes.
have the image of what you had. So you have a fully customizable wardrobe at all
Yes.
times.
Which was, I thought, genius. That was one of the smartest things they
Yeah.
did. In
With
that
no
game.
costs involved either. Like
No.
you don't have to spend in-game currency of any
No.
kind. No magic expenditure, no nothing. So
None. And you can get money really easy.
oh yeah,
Super easy.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's easy to get rich.
easy
It's
to
easy
get rich.
rich.
That's it, guys. It's been an hour. If we keep talking, we're gonna keep. I mean, we could keep talking, but we'll save that. We're gonna save that for an episode of Let's Talk About This at some point.
Mhm.
Also, I have not forgotten about the documentary, but I have an idea behind that. So, quick announcement before we get out of here: March 31st. I don't know if my co-host will be able to make this. I'm hoping he makes it. It would be great if he did. March 31st, I'll be at the Pink House in Canal Fulton with the one, the only, the legendary Sherry Brake herself, before one of her amazing ghost tours that you guys should book up with her. We will be there talking about what she's been up to, and I'm going to get some thoughts on her, or get her thoughts on Rogues Hollow, and then the process of putting that documentary together will finally begin, and we'll have that to you. I want to say late April. We're going to do a private screening for Patreon members. Don't forget the Patreon, patreon.com/this. I want to say This Uncanny Earth. Go help us out. We need the Patreon. It helps us be able to put these documentaries for you guys together. I might even just put the documentary for free out there, and then the next one do a sneak preview on it, just because we've been talking about a lot and I have not produced results. But it's getting warmer. We're probably gonna do some filming soon. I want to get Spider back out here before spring hits, and I want to get views of that whole thing out there. So yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Hope you guys have a great night. Don't cause any trouble. If you do, name it after me. If it's above board, no below board. I'm too old for a below board troublemaking. It's got to be above board. Embezzlement and up, baby. Embezzlement and up. Hashtag crimes. Anyways, guys, we are out of here. Zach, I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you. You are also amazing. And as always, why be boring when you can be uncanny? We will see you folks next week.